Hello and welcome to this lecture where we're going to be looking at the playlist tools, and also some of its most common shortcuts. Also, we're going to be looking at the snap panel so you can keep your patterns in time with the grid. As I've mentioned before, the playlist is where we arrange our patterns into a song. In the last lecture, we added a few of these patterns into our playlist window. And in this lecture, I'm going to go over the main features in the playlist so you can start creating music. So right now we have the playlist window selected. And if it's not selected, just make sure you go over and click the playlist window. Alternatively, you can press the Shift and Tab button to scroll between the different windows. If your playlist isn't open, you can go over to the playlist button over here, or you can use the shortcut F5 on Windows or function F5 on a Mac to open up and close the playlist. Another handy shortcut for the playlist is hitting enter. So if you do this, this will actually increase the size of the window. So now we have a full screen playlist. You can also hit enter again to shrink this back down. So the playlist is arranged on a grid. So horizontally, we have the bar numbers, so the time, and vertically, we have the different tracks. We can also zoom in by stretching the scroll bar up here. And with this, we can also zoom out. We can also zoom vertically by clicking and dragging on this icon in the top right of the playlist. On the Mac, you can also zoom horizontally by holding Command and then scrolling with your mouse. And zoom vertically by holding Alt and scrolling with your mouse. On a Windows computer, you can zoom in horizontally by holding Control and scrolling with your mouse, and vertically by holding Alt and scrolling with your mouse. There's also some handy zoom snaps, which you can access by pressing Shift and then 1, 2, or 3 on your keyboard, and it will give you 3 predefined zooms. Also, if you're using Windows and you have a mouse with a middle scroll button, you can use this to navigate yourself around the playlist window. And you can do so by just clicking and dragging on this middle button. So just for this example, I'm going to quickly delete all of the parts that I've added into this arrangement. I'm currently on the brush tool, and we can delete by just right-clicking and dragging over the parts. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is the snap panel. So the snap panel is this area up here, and you can turn it on or off by clicking on this little magnet icon. So when this is on, any pattern that you paste into the playlist window will be snapped to a certain increment. And you can choose this amount by clicking on the drop-down box here. I'm just going to go over the essential ones right now. So the first one, line. This means that the notes snap to the closest grid line. And this will actually vary depending on how zoomed in you are. So just for this example, if I use the pencil tool right now, you can see it's not snapped to the bar, it's actually snapped to one of the grid lines that we selected. However, if I change this to the next one, which is cell, so these do behave in a similar way, but line will snap to the nearest grid line and cell will snap to the start of the grid line. And next we have none, so there's no snap at all with none. And then going down, we have a few different beat options that we can snap to. And then finally, at the bottom, we have bar. So this will snap to the closest bar. You can actually see the grid lines have changed on this playlist window. Generally, I will use the bar snap setting, but I may change this to a different snap setting if I had a pattern that I didn't want to start exactly on the bar. So notice when I drag and move any of these patterns around, they will actually jump to the nearest bar. One last snap setting I'm going to talk about is actually if you hold down Alt. So if you hold down Alt, it will temporarily disable the snap setting. So you can freely move your patterns around when holding down Alt. Okay, now we're going to quickly go over the different tools for the playlist. So the first tool we're going to look at is the Draw tool. So with this tool, you can click to draw an individual pattern. You can also right-click with this tool to delete an individual pattern. If you just click and drag, then it will just reposition the pattern that you're pasting. If you hit Command on Mac or Control on Windows whilst you have this pencil tool selected, it will allow you to access the selection tool, so you can click and drag to select multiple patterns. And the shortcut for this tool is P. So one thing to be aware of, if you want to be able to access the shortcut for these tools, you will need to change your piano keyboard to typing keyboard, and you can do so by simply clicking on this icon here. While it's still active though, if I press P, you can hear it's being used as a MIDI keyboard. So if I disable this and click P, it will access the draw tool. Okay, so the next tool we're going to look at is the paint tool, and the shortcut for this is B. So with the paint tool, you can either click to insert individual patterns just like the draw tool, and you can also right click to delete these. However, it is different to the draw tool because we can click and drag with the paint tool, and this will paint in multiple patterns. Okay, and the next tool we're going to look at is the delete tool, and the shortcut for this is D. As you might expect, this is quite simple. This just allows you to delete patterns. And moving along, we have the mute tool, and the shortcut is T, and this allows you to mute certain patterns. These patterns will still be here in the arrangement, however, you won't be able to hear them in the playback. And then going across, we have the slip tool. I'm not going to show you this right now though, as this really isn't needed for this Essentials course. And next is the slice tool, and this is used to cut up your patterns. I'm just going to change the snap panel from bar to line. So now I can cut up this pattern. One thing to note is these tools will actually conform with the selected snap mode. Also, if you hover the mouse over these different tools, it will show you what the shortcut is in the hint panel. So right now you can see the shortcut for slice is C. And going along, we have the select tool, which we showed you earlier with the pencil tool. Then we have the zoom tool, which allows you to zoom into certain areas. And you zoom in by clicking and dragging. And to zoom out, you just click once. And then going along, we have the playback tool. And this allows us to start the playback from any point when we have the playback tool selected. But we will have to click on the pattern to start the playback. And one thing to note, it will only actually play back the pattern you have selected. And this last icon that you can see on the right allows us to play the whole song back. So this is the same as pressing play in the transport or the spacebar. Generally, I would use the draw tool most of the time as it is multifunctional. So right now, I'm just going to delete all of the patterns that we've created with this draw tool. And I'm just going to zoom out with the shortcut Shift and 2. Okay, so right now I'm just going to start arranging this song by drawing in a few different patterns. One handy feature of the playlist window is you can quickly loop a section of the song. So for example, if I wanted to loop bar 5 to 9, I would go to the top of the timeline ruler and then hold down Command on the Mac or Control on Windows, and then click and drag where you'd like the section to be looped. So now if I start playback, you can hear that that section looped. And to remove this loop, simply press Command D on a Mac or Control D on Windows. Okay, so I'm just going to take the playlist out of full screen mode now by hitting Enter. And I'm just going to show you a few more handy things you can do in the playlist. So if you can see a green light on any track, you can click on this to actually mute the track. So now if I play it back, you'll see that nothing on track 1 is playing. You can also right-click to colour or rename tracks. And there's also some other options here that you may wish to explore. For example, you can move the tracks up or down here as well. Just like most other applications, you can copy and paste with Command-C and Command-V on Mac or Control-C and Control-V on Windows. However, with FL Studio, you can simply just select a pattern and press Command-B to duplicate this. And it will paste it directly after the last pattern, so it's a lot easier than copying and pasting. And you can also duplicate patterns by holding down Shift. So if I select these 4 patterns here, and I actually did that by holding Command whilst using the Paint tool, then I can hold Shift and drag these to a new start location, and it will make a copy of these patterns. Remember, you can always undo with Command-Z on a Mac or Control-Z on Windows. And if you want to undo more than one stage on Mac, all you need to do is press Command, Alt and Z, and on Windows, Control, Alt and Z. Okay, so that's just a quick overview of the playlist and some of its tools and also some of its most common shortcuts. I hope you found this lecture useful, and I'll see you in the next one.